Hello aspirants, looking at current affairs for 8th November 2016. The 11 items which we have picked up from the Hindu are these. We'll discuss each of them in detail. The first one, now Kerala government favors entry of women into Sabrimala temple. So Sabrimala temple is this famous temple in Kerala. It lies here, you can see, in the state of Kerala in India. The reigning deity is Lord Ayappa. So that is the deity of the Pandala family, royal family of Kerala, Travancore. The Travancore Devaswam board is the managing authority which manages the temple. There is a court case going on. Supreme Court is hearing this case on temple entry. Entry for women is restricted here, women from the age group 10 to 50 years. The reason being that Lord Ayappa is a Naisthik Brahmachari, means a celibate. He is not married, he will not marry, so based on that concept, entrance or presence of women is not allowed. So this has been the case since times immemorial now. So former government of Kerala in its stand in the Supreme Court said that we agree with the stand of the Travancore Devaswam board, and this has been because of the unique idol concept, and this has been there since times immemorial. So government also agrees with this restriction. But the new government which has come into power in Kerala now, so after Feb 2016, now the new government, after 6 months, it is saying now, the new government, that we favor unrestricted entry of women in all temples. So we want doors of all temples open to women. So now this new viewpoint has been put forth before the Supreme Court. So that's why it is in news again. The Travancore Devaswam board says that how can the government keep changing its stance? But actually the government has also changed. So we'll hear more about this, what will be the Supreme Court's judgment on this matter. Then the next news item is ban on NDTV India on hold. So we have been hearing about this in news. The government has imposed a ban for one day, which would have started from midnight of 9 November on NDTV India channel. That the channel would not be aired for one complete day, 24 hours. The reason for it being that it had broadcasted about the Pathankot airbase anti-terrorist operations in Jan 2016, which would have put the national security in jeopardy. So those are the allegations made by the government, and based on these charges, the government had imposed a ban. So this ban was decided by the executive government and interministerial committee. So this was criticized by various sections, even international criticism came in. So now the government has put a hold on this ban. It is giving NDTV India one more chance to put its case before the interministerial committee, which will again look into the matter and decide on the order. This is even before the Supreme Court will start a hearing on the petition which NDTV India has filed in the Supreme Court against this government order. So these are the most latest developments in this matter. Next is Punjab wants justice as per riparian principle. This is Prakash Singh Badal, Punjab Chief Minister, saying that we want justice. So this is with respect to the Satluj Yamuna link canal. So this is a canal which Haryana government has initiated. So it was planned much earlier, but presently it has entered into a deadlock. The Supreme Court is hearing this case. So Punjab says that we want our rights as per a riparian state. Riparian state means a state through which a river flows. So if the river flows through your state, you have a right over that river. So that's the idea. So here the peculiar situation is this. You can see this is Punjab. This is the Union Territory of Chandigarh, capital of both Punjab and Haryana. Haryana is down here. Uttar Pradesh on the eastern side. So this blue line, this is the Satluj river. So Bhakra Nangal Dam, which have been constructed, Govind Sagar Lake here is on Satluj river. This is the line here is the Yamuna river. So what is planned is Satluj Yamuna link canal. So a water body, a canal would be formed which will be linking these two rivers. So this is a large scale project undertaken. The Yamuna canal, this part has already been done. This thick line which you see, uninterrupted line, this is the canal part which lies in Haryana. So this part of the canal has already been constructed. The other section, this section is lying in Punjab. So land has been acquired for this by Haryana government, but then now Punjab government has changed its stance and it says no, this cannot take place. We cannot allow Haryana to have this canal built in our state when Satluj flows through Punjab. So that is the stand which the Punjab government is taking right now. So, but for understanding the whole situation, we have to go back a little in history. So this basically, Punjab and Haryana both were same states. So it was a single state which was divided. So this was in 1966 that reorganization of Punjab took place and both Punjab and Haryana were formed. So at that time it was decided that the Satluj water would be shared by both the states. So that was the case. In 1977, land acquisition also started for this Satluj-Yamuna link canal, which is of 122 kilometers in Punjab and 92 kilometers in Haryana. So this 92 kilometers is built, 122 kilometers in Punjab, though land has been acquired, the construction has not yet started. So 1980, Haryana completed its part. Punjab skipped its deadline and moved to Supreme Court again and again on this Satluj-Yamuna link canal project. So now they are going back on what was decided in 1966. So in 2004, Supreme Court ordered Punjab to complete the canal. But then state passed an act terminating water sharing pacts with Haryana. So this has been the development in 2004 now. So even later, you can see that Punjab passed another act. This was called Punjab Satluj-Yamuna Link Canal Rehabilitation and Revesting of Propriety Rights Bill 2016. So this was a bill passed by the Punjab Legislative Assembly to denotify land acquired for the Satluj-Yamuna Link Canal project in Punjab. So that land acquired would be given back to the owner. So this has been the latest development and the matter is still being heard by the Supreme Court. So this is the stand right now. So before the Supreme Court gives its view, Punjab is also airing its views that we want the right over Satluj as per the riparian state principle. The next article is construction banned near Uttarakhand glaciers. So Uttarakhand is a state having large number of glaciers. Around 968 glaciers are present in Uttarakhand and they are source of some significant rivers too, like Ganga, Yamuna are originating from these glaciers in Gangotri, Yamunotri in Uttarakhand respectively. So presently a PIL has been filed in Uttarakhand High Court asking for directions on encroachment and illegal construction which takes place around these glaciers too in Uttarakhand. So the court has given its order which is of significance. The major points of this order are highlighted here. One is it says no new permanent construction must come up within 25 kilometer radius from the edges of all glaciers across the state. Second is restriction on burning of fossil fuels within 10 kilometer radius of the edges of the glaciers. Then it asks the government to make LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, kerosene oil available in abundance to the people. So they don't resort to practices like burning wood and other factors which will result in more pollution. Then it says limited passes for persons visiting the glacier. The order also suggests the state that it can impose a glacier cess or a glacier tax which can be used to implement the provisions under this order. It also prohibits the use of plastic in all forms within 20 kilometer radius of the glaciers. It also asks to put up stations, patrolling stations 20 kilometer from each glacier to ensure the enforcement of the code directions. Then also it says that army and paramilitary forces can have the infrastructure built in these regions, but also they should have the environmental factors taken into consideration. So this is a significant court order here. This is Uttarakhand, you can see. The important rivers Yamuna, Ganga, Alaknanda, through which Ganga is formed after Bhagirathi and Alaknanda meet here. So that is of significance. Then the next news item is tobacco farmers up in arms as COP7 meet kicks off. So this is Conference of Parties, COP 7th Conference of Parties of the FCTC, which is Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which is a WHO convention, World Health Organization convention. The 7th meeting is being held in India in Greater Noida. So farmers, tobacco farmers from various states have come at the venue and they are protesting against this convention. The reason being they say that the viewpoints of the tobacco farmers will not be taken into consideration here. Only the activists, the states are involved. So livelihoods of farmers are also at stake. So their viewpoints should also be taken into consideration is what they are demanding. But tobacco is unhealthy and severely affects the population. So that is well acknowledged. So steps do need to be taken, but how can tobacco farmers be rehabilitated is the responsibility of the state. So we'll have to wait and watch what treaty comes out from this too, what provisions are finalized here. So you can see this FCTC, first international treaty negotiated under World Health Organization, Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. So this was adopted in 2003, it entered into force in 2005, and since then we see this is the 7th COP. So it has not been held annually too. So globalization of tobacco epidemic is acknowledged. So as a response to this step has been taken. You can see even India is said to be the second largest producer of tobacco in the world. China leads in tobacco production. You can see here in this graph too. Then this is the production, and other countries of significance who produce tobacco in bulk are Brazil, USA, Argentina. Then the next news item is India seeks return of 57 fugitives from UK. So India has provided a list of 57 fugitives. Fugitives means people who have escaped from the law of the land in India and they are required to be present in India for the cases to proceed against them. So these are, one is of course Mr. Vijay Mallya. Another is Christian Michael, who is an alleged middleman in the Augusta Westland VIP helicopter deal where corruption charges have been framed. Then another one is 2002 Gujarat riots accused Samir Ali. So all these people have to be extradited. So only the list has been provided to UK. We'll wait and watch what happens next. Next is swift entry for business flyers to UK. So India is demanding relaxation of visa norms in Britain for Indians, but the British government is not ready to seize that ground yet. So what it has provided now is for Indian businesses, Indian businessmen, a first of its kind scheme will be initiated. This is called Frequent Traveller Scheme. So under this, the travelers, businessmen from India who frequently travel to Britain will get easier entry process into Britain at all airports. So they will have fewer forms to fill, they will have swifter passage to airports. So all these aspects are included in this scheme which they have announced now. So they want stronger trade and investment relation with India. They want businesses from India, but then for a separate treaty, trade and investment treaty and FTA between India and Britain, it says that will have to wait because till Britain does not exit from EU, it cannot sign a separate pact with any other country. So this is possible, a pact or treaty is possible with any country with Britain only after Brexit. The next article is again India-Britain relations. It says Britain raises tax issues, India social security taxation. So Britain has raised concerns over retrospective taxation which India has demanded from two entities, two commercial firms from Britain, that is Kane Limited and Vodafone. So one is in oil sector and another in telecom sector. So retrospective tax means a tax which is imposed later, but the taxation demand is made for an activity which took place before the law had been framed. So then example given here, like for example, Vodafone acquired Hutch SR in 2007. So based on this act of Vodafone, government is demanding a tax based on an amendment which it did in 2012. So under these provisions in 2012, if a law is made, that is applicable from that date onwards. If that law is made applicable from before that period also, it is called a retrospective law. So this retrospective taxation is something which even the present government has said we will not abide by. So India will not follow retrospective taxation. So there is still taxation uncertainty. So government of Britain is presently demanding clarity from India. And the stand which India has taken on the matter is of social security taxation. So this is a concern for India. Social security taxation means when employees, Indians are working in Britain, then the salary which they are paid, there is a social security tax deduction also done. So that social security deduction, not a tax, deduction is there, means for social security benefits like pensions or some other provisions which are there even in India. So that is done for by time after retirement. So now the case may be that that person will not stay in Britain till the time of retirement. Then why should he be having these social security deductions done? So that is the question. So sometimes it also happens that social security deductions are done in Britain as well as in India. So that is also something, double deductions which have to be avoided. So for these purposes, there is a demand for totalization agreement. So totalization agreement means this, a social security agreement which will make sure that these deductions take place in only one place. So the laws of the two countries have to be aligned in such a way. So this agreement is also lacking between India and UK. So India is demanding such an agreement presently. So this is the concern raised by India. Then the next is about, even if you wish to know about the Vodafone HSR and the Kane issue, it is, this timeline is given here. So the problem with Vodafone and Kane, with Vodafone you can see here. So what they do is, there are many entities set up by a company. So Vodafone has also set up many entities. Vodafone is basically headquartered in London. Then it acquired its some stake in Hong Kong based the Hutch Telecom Limited. Then this Hong Kong based entity had acquired holding in CGP Investments, which was actually a dummy company present in Mauritius, so which is a tax haven, with very low taxation in this country. So because of this, it will have to pay minimal taxes. So this CGP Investment in Mauritius acquired 67% holding in Hutchison SR, which is there in India. So this was the whole complex web of companies which they had brought in. And later what happened is, Hong Kong Holding transferred all its shares, including all the shares of this CGP, to Vodafone. So Vodafone is based in London. There is another Vodafone International Holding in Netherlands. So all these shares, when they go from a company in Hong Kong to a company in Netherlands, then there is no taxation which India can demand. But this company which has been transferred is having a stake in Hutchison SR. So 67% of Hutchison SR is with this company. And this has gone 100% to Vodafone. So the transaction has not taken place in India and is not with respect to an entity in India, but a major stake of this entity, this unit, is also there with Vodafone. Then later Vodafone, Hutchison SR became Vodafone SR. Hutchison left. So based on these transactions, the gains which are made, that is called capital gains. So there is a taxation imposed, that is called capital gains tax. So this capital gains tax is what the government demands from Vodafone, but Vodafone says that this transaction did not take place in India, we are not entitled to pay any tax. So these are the stands taken. Even the matter went in the Supreme Court. The High Court favored the government. So then Vodafone approached the Supreme Court in India, and the Supreme Court favored Vodafone. It said the government, because in 2012, as I showed you, to bring more clarity in the law, it amended the act, so that Vodafone, these transactions which are taking place outside India, to fall under the ambit of Indian laws. So this was said to be a retrospective taxation provision. So Supreme Court judge favored Vodafone. So this judgment favored Vodafone. So still the government is demanding no taxation has to be paid by Vodafone. And Vodafone has gone for international arbitration. So it has approached an international tribunal. The present government, this was in the times of UPA government, the present NDA government has said that we will give you a window. This was in budget 2016. It made this window open for all these international entities which have taxation disputes. So for all these taxes, the government is saying that you pay the tax amount. We will not demand any penalty from you, will not demand any interest from you. So even it cuts down the demands up to 50%. So this you can approach and pay these taxes and close all international arbitrations and even arbitrations or cases going on in the courts, and just pay the taxes. So this is the window which government has opened. Of course, the organizations still are looking into whether they should accept this provision or not, or go for international arbitration, because basically they say we will not pay any taxes. So let's see what happens. With respect to Kane too, again you can see here Kane Energy, it did a similar thing. Kane Energy transferred its Indian business to Kane India. IT department demanded a capital gains tax on this, and eventually later Kane Energy has also transferred its shares to Vedanta, which is again a company based in UK, Britain. So again all this web of companies here are also present, which is resulting in government losing on its share of taxes, Indian government. So even Vedanta has a huge debt on. Then next is regarding the totalization agreement. We already discussed this about social security deductions. The next news item is blacklisting policy for tainted defense deals approved. So Defense Acquisition Council, which is headed by Defense Minister Manohar Parrikar, has approved a long pending policy for blacklisting firms which are involved in corruption charges in arms purchases. So presently it says that there will be not a blanket blacklisting of firms who are involved in corrupt practices, but then heavy fines can be imposed on firms involved in this, because earlier too it has been seen, if a blanket ban is put on them, then it results in the defense preparedness of the military being affected, because then they cannot provide spares, the support and maintenance which is required cannot be acquired from them, so that becomes difficult. So that's why the government is saying that heavy fines would be imposed on them. Then another is about acceptance of necessities, AON, which is said to be the first step in defense acquisition, which has been initiated for purchases of light combat aircraft, which is Tejas, and light combat helicopter, both from HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So this will fall under the indigenously designed and developed and manufactured category, so IDDM category, which is a new category under defense procurement policy which the government has come up with to encourage indigenous development and manufacturing of defense equipments. So that is there. Then another category is Buy Indian category. Under that too, UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, mini UAVs have been acquired, so that provision has also been made. So this is another AON. That AON is acquisition acceptance of necessities. So that is the first step. You can see defense procurement procedure is this. So they put forth an acquisition of necessity as such, then it is approved by various committees, and eventually it goes to Defense Procurement Board, and finally to the Defense Acquisition Council, which is the topmost body chaired by Defense Minister, which approves it. So this is about defense procurement. Then the next news item is new super battery made from junkyard metal. So researchers in USA have developed a new battery, which is a super battery which can be used for 13 years daily, which can charge and discharge daily at 90% of its capacity. So this is as small as a pill bottle, medicine bottle, and this can uses metals from junkyard. So these metals along with water, electrolyte has been used, which is similar to the idea of Baghdad battery. So they have been inspired by this ancient technology. So this is the technology of 1st century BC, in which a battery was formed using a terracotta pot, means earthen pot, in which a copper sheet and an iron rod were added, inserted, and some chemicals, electrolytes were included in this. So it's water based only. So this results in anodization of the metal when a voltage is applied, means when electricity is connected to it, and that results in charging of the battery, and then it can be used for energy purposes. So this is a new development. Then the last news item is airborne lasers to throw light on Rajgir's history. So this is regarding Rajgir, which is in Bihar. So this is the first capital of Magad Empire. Before Patna or Pataliputra became the capital, which was the permanent later capital of Magad Empire, this Rajgir was the first capital. This is also the place where the first Buddhist council took place. So this is also a place where Buddha had given his sermons and stayed for many years. So this Rajgir is an archaeological site, and archaeologists now presently plan to use LIDAR, that is light detection and ranging. So radar, similar to radar, it uses light. So this LIDAR and also ground penetrating radars will be used to locate the monuments which have been mentioned by even the Chinese Buddhist pilgrims like Fa Hin and Wen Sang, who had visited Patna and Bihar. So they have mentioned some monuments. So whether these monuments actually exist will be detected using this modern technology. So this is a project which has been undertaken in collaboration with even the Nalanda University, which has been set up. So this will bring more findings too. Also another point is Rajgir is also known for Jainism related sites too. So Jainism also has been, both Buddha and Mahavira have been contemporaries and they were from the same region. So Jainism also is influential here. This is the archaeological site. So that is it for today. Thank you.